Well, fantastic venue indeed. Couldn't say it any better myself. 50% inspirational, 50% terrifying. Absolutely. And so many world records, so many Olympic records have been set here. Anybody remember the TV program Record Breakers with Roy Castle? Anybody remember that one? There's a few old faces in here. Hands up if you do. Of course you do, of course you do. Deprecation, 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 that's what we need if we want to be the best and if we want to track them less. Deprecation's what we need if we want to be a record breaker, yeah. Well, that woke you up, didn't it? How's your lunches feeling now? All right, let's get cracking. So, third-party cookies going away. You've heard this 10,000 times. We know it's the right thing to do. It has to be the right thing to do. Put the controls in the hands of the consumers. Let them make their choices about the advertising and privacy. It has to be the right thing to do. The smart thing to do is for all of us to be thinking about what is the next generation of innovation in targeting? How are we going to do it? And actually, I'm really delighted with all of the discussions that I've heard today because it sounds like the industry is absolutely facing this head on. It sounds like we've got a long time until it comes, 2023, but it needs our attention now because it won't be long before that happens. If you think about all the stages we need to go through to get to that point where we have this next solution in place, like we're running out of time. The clock is ticking already. So what we wanted to find out is where does the industry currently stand? And we partnered with ExchangeWire in the UK and with Ad Age in the US to do an anonymized survey across 1,200 industry professionals to try and find out exactly where we currently are. Some of you in the room probably even took part in that, and so I thank you for doing that. And I'm going to take you through some of the findings today. Okay, let's start off. So there's quite a lot. I'm going to take my time on each slide, but the first super interesting thing is that in the UK, 76% of the people that we spoke to believe that they have a path forward to prepare for the change, and 79% believe they will be able to adapt to this change. But only 22% have actually implemented identity solutions. And when I first thought about that, that seemed like a strange juxtaposition to me. We know that we're going to do it, and we're confident that we can do it, but we've not done it. And I love the comment from Lindsay earlier today when she was giving the anecdotal evidence that people aren't just going to throw the cookie away now because they've invested so much in it. They're going to use it for as long as they possibly can. And that started to make more sense to me. Otherwise, I was thinking, well, why are we not putting these solutions in place already? Compare that with the US. 43% believe they have a path forward. 62% feel they'll be able to adapt to the change. And 31% have actually implemented the solutions. Now, again, I thought this was strange. The Americans always think they're so clever. They think they're so much better than us. Like, why are they not as advanced in their thinking? And I think what it probably comes down to is the experience that we've all been through with GDPR as a starting point. We've had our very first experience of like wondering what's going to happen. Will the sky fall on our heads when addressability changes in the way we expect it to with the deprecation? So we're in a better position to really gear ourselves up to what the future could be. Here's another incredible chart. Lots of stuff on here. If you want to take pictures of it, please do. If you'd like to just have a copy of these, then john@triplelift.com. I'll send it over to you. This is a touch complicated, so we asked who's most responsible for finding the correct solutions for the loss of third-party cookies. So who's got the, who's going to sort this one out for us? Now, from a publisher perspective in the UK, 123% of publishers, 123% are more likely than the average, that's why it's 123%, to believe that it's a publisher problem. Publishers think that they've got the responsibility for it. 113% of ad tech feel that on average, they're more likely to have to solve the problem. And the marketers are kind of saying, well, we don't think this is our problem. We think that you guys should be sorting this out. So there's no one singular party that's responsible for it, but it feels like some people are putting their hands up to it. In the US, nobody's really sure. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. They kind of think that it's an ad tech problem and that ad tech need to deal with it, but the publishers don't think it's their problem. The marketers think it's an ad tech problem, and ad tech thinks it's the industry associations that should be sorting it out. So, like, they still don't have a clue what they're doing. They think they're advanced. We're leading the way. But both countries believe that we need to focus our attention in the next 6 to 12 months, right? So 42% of people in the UK believe their focus is going to remain the same. That's because we're already looking at it. 55%, we're going to up the amount of effort that we're putting into this. In the US, they know that they're going to have to change, they know that they think that the focus is going to remain the same. They think they're going to increase their focus. So we both know that this is coming and we need to deal with it. Now, what's super interesting is marketers in the UK think this is going to have a drastic change on the way they do business. And I think we've heard that today in so many of the different sessions. And publishers in the UK think that it's going to have a drastic change. The US, again, they've got their heads in the sand. They're not really sure. And I think it's so interesting. We have so many companies that have US representation here in Europe. I know what it's been like for me over the years when I've been trying to get people to concentrate and focus on GDPR. Sometimes we've had to work really hard to get them to realize that this is a big deal and things need to change. And then finally on this part, so the big concerns, so the biggest concerns for marketers in the UK, we're worried about everything. We think that it's going to impact measurement. It's going to have technical implications. We're going to lose demographic data. The performance of the campaigns is going to go down. In the US, it's all about measurement, according to them, which is interesting because the last panel was all about measurement. So it really feels to me as though we are approaching this with a much greater depth and understanding of what the problems are, and we're addressing it in a more vigorous way than our colleagues over in the States. So what happens in a world where all of these things start to go away? Well, first of all, let's look at what the typical approach is, what the basic approach is. Marketers want to define a targeting profile for a campaign. They use their buying tools, and then the ads are displayed to those consumers. But what happens when that middle piece goes away? A lot of the stuff has been suggested today, and I think we're all aligned that addressability is going to actually be a spectrum of various different solutions. So on the far side, you've got the ID solutions that are coming into place, the cross-domain solutions. The last panel, there was this concept that there will be no one solution that rules them all. In the middle, you've got the first-party data, so brands, publishers, collecting first-party data as quickly as they possibly can in order to bring solutions to market which can allow audience segmentation and, to a certain degree, contextual targeting. And then on the left-hand side, you've got the group, the cohorts coming from the privacy sandboxes of this world. Well, let's look at what that means for each of the different publishers. If you're a long-tail site and nobody logs into your site, it's going to be very difficult for you to have that cross-domain identification. We're estimating somewhere around 2% of all users will log in. Similarly, even for trusted publishers, if there's no real reason for you to log into that publisher, then you're probably not going to do it. So again, a 2%, if you're lucky, ID solution that's going to run across your site. If you are a login publisher, then you're going to get people coming to you who are going to log in. And you're going to have a better chance of actually getting those ID solutions in place. And also we're putting in here popular brand, because we feel that the brand becoming a publisher is a trend that we've seen across the years. And we think that they have an even better opportunity to get customers and consumers to log in because there is a clear exchange of value there. But at best, this is going to be 10% of all of the supply that's available, where cross-domain is going to be identified across all platforms, which means there's an additional 90% of inventory, which is still going to need to be addressed with these cohort solutions, the first-party solutions, in order to change the way that we do advertising. So if we look at that piece in the middle that we need to address, it is going to be a spectrum of various different things. Buyers are going to need to target all sorts of data types to find the right matches and to find ways to reach the audiences that they're looking for. They can already start to do a lot of these different things by experimenting with the various different browsers, because you've already got a world where certain browsers are restricting your abilities. So now's the time to start preparing. Now is the time to start testing to find out what's the best thing to do. So clearly, you need to diversify your portfolio, de-risk your future, and start thinking about how you can take things forward. So we think of it in 4 different ways. First, integrate with those leading ID solutions. There won't be one winner, but there's going to be lots of great companies out there who are going to give very solid ID solutions that you can integrate with. You might need to integrate with more than one. Then you have challenges about whether your audiences are going to overlap. But broadly speaking, these are companies that are going to be worthy people for you to spend some time integrating your technology with. The second is get that first-party data in place as best you possibly can. Whether you're a brand, whether you're a publisher, now's the time to start collecting information about those users. The more that you can own, the more that you can understand about what they're doing and what their strategies are, the better you're going to be about targeting in the future. The third is, and people have talked about this already today, it's supporting the modern contextual buying. The days of just like keyword contextual are gone, and we're in a much stronger place from a contextual perspective with AI solutions allowing you to really find the users that are showing intent based on the areas that they invest in. TripleLift is known as a native platform. We've always believed that contextual is a huge part of the advertising addressability mix. And then finally, we need to take some time to really invest into the privacy sandbox and just understand how best we can use these technologies. Whether you like it or not, whether you like the companies or not, they are going to have insane scale for us, and it's important that we can find ways to get our solutions to work with these technologies. So TripleLift is always focused on trying to push the world of privacy and identity forward. We have a privacy hub, which is where we do lots of blogs around where we think the industry is going. We'd love for you all to be part of that experience and to help us and to join into the conversation with us. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you ever so much for that presentation, John. And rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, I will not be starting this part of the session via song and dance. That will be far too...
Am I the first person to sing at ATS?
Yes.
Yes!
You smashed the record
Ambition
there.
achieved.
Sorted already. So I want to dig straight into the findings of the survey. And one thing that particularly interested me, you covered earlier, in terms of the difference between the UK and US, in terms of who is responsible for finding a solution to the addressability, all the challenges that are coming with the privacy-first ecosystem. Why do you think there is such a difference between the UK thought of it and the US?
Well, as I said, I think the experience that we've been through with GDPR and privacy issues in general over a number of years now has given us a better understanding of the responsibilities of all of the different parts of the ecosystem. Like, publishers have known they have to do something. They've had to make changes to the website. They've had to make changes to the user journey with cookie ribbons and things like that. They've tried to make it as easy as possible for consumers to continue their journeys while staying on the right side of the regulators. But they know that that's important for them. The ad tech companies have been working with the publishers, working with the brands for a long period of time. They've understood what the issues are, and they've started to address those. So I think we've just had so much experience of it. We are just in a stronger position. In the US, there's no national legislation or federal legislation which is consistent across the entire region. So there's been pockets of activity in California and other states, but there's nothing that's consistent. So they don't have that same sense of, or they haven't had the same experience that we've had in going through all of the various different hoops that we've all had to jump through. On a second point, and it was reminded for me by a survey that YouGov did, is Americans are also way more, they have way more belief in themselves than British people do. And the survey that YouGov did suggested that in a fight with a grizzly bear, US citizens are 4 times more likely, they believe they're 4 times more likely to beat a grizzly bear in a fist fight than people from Britain do. So there's that sense of like, the world can't stop them. They have a very strong belief in themselves, even if it's misfounded. Apologies to the Americans in today.
I think we discussed that survey in the office, and I think...
You know it.
Yeah, I think...
It's not just grizzly bears. It's like killer whales. It's kangaroos.
I think the pessimism of the UK showed when most of us thought we'd lose in a fight to a small cat.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's interesting to see that difference.
We'll tweet
in
that
mentality.
again at the end of this if you've not seen it. It's fascinating stuff.
But in a sense, it's the same issue in the sense that UK participants, they're going, right, this is a problem I can solve. I'm going to come up with a solution to it. Whereas the US is going, it's somebody's problem, but I'm not necessarily going to be the one to come up with a solution for it. There's disparity and it needs to be brought together. How should the market go about bringing different market participants together to find a solution?
I think that this is, again, there's parallels with what we went through in the run-up to GDPR. We talked about all of this stuff endlessly in the run-up to GDPR, and it was only when we went through it that we started to really put the solutions in place that needed to be put in place. So I think they're going to have to just go through this period where like the sky falls down on their heads and they scurry around and try and fix things. And we've heard today that there's incredible optimism from our part of the industry, at least, that this is a good thing for us. So marketing for me is always about finding good business outcomes for the marketers, and the technologies or the solutions which help to deliver those outcomes will be the ones that rise to the top, and anything else that doesn't add value to the ecosystem is going to fall by the wayside. I think they're going to have to go through that process of just experimentation, because the chance of getting the entire industry to do the same thing, not the right thing, but the same thing, is really, really difficult. We heard it in the measurement panel just now. Open source technology is fabulous, but everybody will be trying to look for their own little advantage on top of open source, and that's where I think it starts to fragment.
Speaking of that kind of process and experimentation and testing, obviously the switch from a kind of one-size-fits-all, this is addressability, happy days we can tick this box, to this kind of four-pronged approach of having to use things like cohorts, contextual, etc. How should the market go about testing and experimenting for these changes?
I think it's really important that we find ways to come together in order to do that. So every publisher has their trusted partners that they're currently working with. We heard from Piers earlier today that if you move the needle for him, then there's a seat at his table. So people know who their trusted partners are. Brands know who their trusted partners are. Everybody needs to just put themselves through a little period of education and understanding of what the problems and what the issues are. Because while this is an incredibly complex problem at a certain level, if we are all a little bit more understanding, if we will take a little bit of time to educate ourselves on what we should be doing and what we could be doing, then I think it becomes a lot easier. We start talking the same language and we can start to get to a place where solutions are being provided to amongst ourselves collaboratively. But if we don't do that, then it's going to be challenging because we're not going to be in a position where it'll be very easy for us to start going down rabbit holes that we don't want to go down. So it is, in my mind, about finding trusted partners that you are comfortable working with, and then ensuring that you know what you're talking about when you're having the discussions about how you're going to find a route forward.
Awesome. And in terms of how to bring the consumer into that conversation, we've touched upon it in earlier panels when people are getting sick of being served the same ad loads of times. People are sick of being served cookie notices left, right, and centre whenever they visit a site. How do we bring the consumer into the conversation?
See, I think this is a fascinating one. Again, going back to the GDPR, the run-up to GDPR, I was convinced that the cookie banner or the cookie wall was going to absolutely polarize the community. I thought it would get people thinking about the publishers that they really care about and the publishers that they don't care about, and whether they're prepared to pass this value proposition across to effectively pay for the content that they wanted to consume with their click. I think we've seen the opposite. I think, I'm as guilty as everybody probably in this room that the minute a cookie accept cookie comes up, I'm clicking on the OK just to get it out of the way as quickly as I possibly can, regardless of the site that I'm visiting, because there's a piece of content that I want to get to, and so I'm going to go to it. So the consumer has shown through the indifference to a certain degree how little they care about topics such as this. So trying to educate them about it. It's when we tried to put really complex cookie barriers in front of them, which explained everything and showed every single ad tech vendor that you were working with. That's when they were scratching their head and saying, I have no idea what any of this is. I've never heard of half of these companies. Well, I've never heard of 99% of these companies. The only one I've heard of is Meta. Sorry. We don't like Meta, right? That's consensus, right? Okay. Boo, yeah. There is this situation where we are going to have to try and find ways to take the consumer on the journey with us. And I think publishers have got an incredibly large part to play in this, because I think the opportunity for them to start to have that dialogue with the consumer and to start to help them understand the value equation between free content and advertising, and the value equation between providing first-party information about themselves to enrich the experience that they're going through. I think that's really interesting for the publishers to be able to do that, and I hope that they're able to be successful in their journey. I think the brands have a big part to play in this, because brand loyalty is something which is absolutely paramount. And if you do find a brand advocate, if you find somebody that's really leaning into your brand, then there's a certain level of engagement that you can get through. But again, you have to find that balance right before you push the trust a little bit too far on the other side, and then you turn them away, especially if they're paying significant amounts of money to buy the product that you're providing to them. But they have this great opportunity to do something which they've never done in the past, because of the importance and the value that's going to come around first-party cookies.
Coming close to time, but one final thing I wanted to ask you in terms of the session title, Goodbye Third-Party Cookies, Hello New World. What does that new world look like within the next sort of 5 to 10 years? And what are the main hurdles that need to be overcome?
5 to 10 years in ad tech. Oh my God, let me get my crystal ball out. It has to be this. I think we have to try and find a way to draw people away from the walled garden environment to a certain degree. I think we have to find a way to ensure that there is this robust ecosystem of differing opinions, differing views, different publishers, a thriving news and editorial ecosystem. I think would just be a fantastic thing for us. That's where I hope the brave new world of the deprecation of cookies takes us to. But it's going to need people within the industry to understand what you're talking about, so that when you come together and try and collaborate on things, everybody's talking from the same script. Awesome. Looking forward to that brave new world. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks ever so much, John. Let's hear it for John, that wonderful musical panel. Thank you.